The sound of gunfire echoed across the Montana hills as Olivia Daniels urged her chestnut mare to gallop faster, her heart pounding against her ribs. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. The bank robbery in Liberty Creek had gone terribly wrong, and now, as the sole witness to the crime, she was running for her life. "Come on, Penny," she whispered to her horse, feeling the powerful animal respond beneath her. The year was 1876, and the Western Territories were still wild and untamed. Olivia had come west only 6 months ago, following the death of her father and the loss of their Pennsylvania farm to creditors. At 22, she had hoped for a fresh start working as a schoolteacher in Liberty Creek. Instead, she now found herself fleeing across unfamiliar terrain with 3 armed men in pursuit. The thundering of hooves behind her grew louder. Olivia risked a glance back and saw the men gaining ground, their faces twisted in determination. The leader, a man with a scar across his cheek, raised his pistol. "Faster, Penny, faster," Olivia cried, leaning low over her horse's neck. The sound of a gunshot cracked through the air and Olivia flinched, but the bullet went wide. Ahead, the trail narrowed as it wound up into the hills. If she could reach the rocky passes, she might lose them in the maze of canyons and ravines. Penny was sure-footed and quick, more accustomed to this territory than the outlaws' horses. As they rounded a sharp bend in the trail, Olivia's blood ran cold. The path ahead skirted a steep ravine, the bottom of which was obscured by shadow and distance. The trail was barely wide enough for a horse, with loose stones scattered across its surface. "Easy, girl," she murmured, slowing Penny slightly. Better to navigate carefully than risk. Another gunshot exploded behind her. Penny reared in terror, her front hooves pawing at the air. Olivia felt herself slipping from the saddle, her fingers clutching desperately at the reins. For one terrible moment she hung suspended, staring into Penny's frightened eyes. Then she was falling, a scream torn from her throat as the ravine opened beneath her. The world spun in a kaleidoscope of blue sky and rocky cliff face. She struck the side of the ravine once, twice, pain exploding through her body before everything went black. Ethan Marshall had been tracking the wild Mustang for 3 days. The magnificent black stallion had been raiding local ranches, stealing mares and causing havoc among the settled herds. As the most skilled horseman at the Double S Ranch, Ethan had been tasked with either capturing or driving off the troublesome animal. The 30-year-old cowboy crouched low, studying tracks in the soft earth near a small creek. The stallion had passed through recently, heading toward higher ground. Ethan's own mount, a sturdy buckskin named Drifter, stood patiently nearby, reins trailing loosely on the ground. Ethan straightened, stretching his back. 6 years working as foreman at the Double S had earned him a reputation as a fair, hard-working man who understood horses better than most understood people. His lean, sun-bronzed face was partially hidden beneath the brim of his worn Stetson, but those who knew him recognized the intelligence in his green eyes. The sound of gunfire in the distance made him pause. Liberty Creek was at least 10 miles away, and hunting season was months off. Gunshots in these parts usually meant trouble. Ethan mounted Drifter and turned toward the sound. It wasn't his business, but his sense of duty wouldn't allow him to ignore potential trouble. As he rode, more shots rang out and he urged Drifter into a canter. The terrain grew steeper as he approached a series of ravines that cut through the hillside. Local ranchers avoided this area due to its treacherous paths and hidden dangers. Ethan slowed Drifter to a walk, listening carefully. The shooting had stopped, but he could hear the distant thunder of hooves. Rounding a bend in the trail, Ethan spotted 3 riders in the distance, moving away at a gallop. Something about their urgency struck him as suspicious. He watched until they disappeared from sight, then continued forward cautiously. The trail eventually led him to the edge of a deep ravine. Recent hoofprints showed where a horse had reared and skidded on the loose gravel. Dismounting, Ethan knelt to examine the disturbed earth. The tracks told a clear story. A horse had been startled, reared up, and its rider had fallen heart-pounding. Ethan peered over the edge of the ravine. At first, he saw nothing but rocky outcroppings and sparse vegetation. Then, about 30 feet down, a flash of blue caught his eye fabric moving slightly in the breeze. "Hello," he called down. No response came. Ethan didn't hesitate. He secured Drifter to a sturdy pine, then removed his gun, belt, and jacket. The descent would be dangerous, but someone was down there, possibly injured or worse. Grabbing a coil of rope from his saddle, he tied one end to a boulder and tested its strength. The climb down was treacherous. Loose rocks gave way beneath his boots, cascading into the depths below. Twice he nearly lost his grip on the rope, his palms burning as he slid several feet before regaining control. Ethan moved carefully, testing each foothold before transferring his weight. When he finally reached the spot where he'd seen the blue fabric, his breath caught in his throat. A woman lay sprawled on a narrow ledge, her dress torn and dirty, her auburn hair spilled around her like a halo. Blood trickled from a gash on her forehead. Ethan knelt beside her, gently brushing hair from her face. She was young, perhaps in her early 20s, with delicate features now marred by scratches and bruises. Her chest rose and fell with shallow breaths. She was alive. "Miss," he said, touching her shoulder lightly. "Can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered but didn't open. Ethan looked up at the cliff face above them, then down at the additional 100-foot drop below their precarious perch. Getting her out safely would be a challenge. With careful movements, Ethan checked for broken bones. Her right arm was bent at an unnatural angle, definitely broken, and her ankle was swollen. Possibly multiple broken ribs as well, judging by her labored breathing. "I'm going to get you out of here," he promised, though he wasn't sure she could hear him. "But I need to secure you first." Using his bandana, Ethan wiped blood from her face. As he did, her eyes opened briefly, startling blue eyes that locked with his for a moment before closing again. "That's it," he encouraged. "Stay with me." Working quickly, Ethan fashioned a makeshift splint for her arm using branches and strips torn from his shirt. He bound her ribs as best he could, then fashioned a harness from his rope that would allow him to carry her on his back while climbing. "This might hurt," he warned as he carefully moved her into position. A small moan escaped her lips, but she remained unconscious, which was probably a blessing given what was to come. The ascent was even more difficult than the descent. Every movement seemed to dislodge rocks that clattered dangerously down the ravine. Ethan's muscles screamed with the effort of carrying both their weights, and sweat soaked through his shirt despite the cool mountain air. Several times he had to stop, pressing against the rock face to rest while ensuring his precious cargo remained secure. After what seemed like hours, Ethan's hand finally grasped the edge of the ravine. With a final surge of strength, he pulled them both over the lip, then gently laid the injured woman on level ground. She stirred slightly, her face contorting in pain. "Water," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Ethan quickly retrieved his canteen from Drifter's saddle and returned to her side. Cradling her head, he helped her take small sips. "Thank you," she murmured, her eyes opening fully for the first time. Despite her injured state, those blue eyes held a clarity and intelligence that struck Ethan deeply. "I'm Ethan Marshall," he said, "foreman at the Double S Ranch. Can you tell me your name?" "Olivia," she replied weakly. "Olivia Daniels, the school teacher from Liberty Creek." Her eyes suddenly widened with alarm. "The men, they're still after me." "They're gone," Ethan assured her. "Rode off in the other direction." "What happened?" Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "The bank. I saw them rob it. The teller, they shot him. I ran and they chased me." Her voice broke. "My horse. Penny, where's Penny?" "I don't see any horse," Ethan said gently, "but we need to get you to a doctor. Liberty Creek is too far. I'll take you to the Double SR Ranch. Doctor can help you." Olivia nodded weakly, then winced at the movement. "I can't ride," she said. "You won't have to," Ethan replied. "Drifter can carry us both." With extreme care, Ethan lifted Olivia and settled her in front of him on his horse. Her body was limp against his chest, her head resting against his shoulder. Ethan wrapped one arm securely around her waist while holding the reins with his free hand. "Hold on," he murmured against her hair. "I'll get you home safe." As they rode, Ethan felt Olivia's breathing become more labored. Occasionally, she would whimper when Drifter's gait jostled her injuries. He kept their pace slow and steady, choosing the smoothest path possible. "Tell me about yourself," Ethan said, hoping to keep her conscious and distracted from the pain. "How long have you been in Liberty Creek?" "6 months, Olivia replied, her voice weak. "Came from Pennsylvania after my father died. Always wanted to teach." "And the children, how do you like teaching them?" A small smile touched her lips. "They're wonderful, wild as jackrabbits sometimes, but eager to learn." Her voice trailed off as she slipped back into unconsciousness. Ethan tightened his grip around her and urged Drifter to move a little faster. The Double S Ranch came into view as the sun began to set. The main house stood on a gentle rise, surrounded by barns, corrals, and bunkhouses. Lamplight glowed in the windows, a beacon of safety in the gathering darkness. As they approached, a ranch hand spotted them and called out an alarm. Within moments, several men came running, including Samuel Sanders, the ranch owner. "Ethan, what in tarnation?" Sanders exclaimed, his weathered face creasing with concern as he saw the unconscious woman. "Found her in Cottonwood Ravine," Ethan explained as he carefully handed Olivia down to waiting hands. "Fell from her horse. Broken arm for certain, maybe ribs. She's the schoolteacher from Liberty Creek." There was trouble bank robbery, she witnessed it. "Get Doc Wilkins," Sanders ordered one of the hands, "and tell Mrs. Sanders to prepare the guest room." He turned back to Ethan. "You did right bringing her here. Liberty Creek's too far with injuries like these." Ethan dismounted, his muscles stiff after the long ride. He took Olivia back into his arms, following Sanders into the house. The ranch owner's wife, Martha, was already turning down the covers on the bed in their best guest room. "Poor dear," Martha exclaimed, helping Ethan settle Olivia on the bed. "She's been through the ringer, hasn't she? I'll fetch some clean cloths and hot water." Doc Wilkins arrived shortly after, medical bag in hand. The elderly physician had retired from his practice in town years ago, but still served the ranch and surrounding homesteads when needed. "Everyone out," he ordered after a quick assessment. "Except you, Martha, I'll need your help." Ethan reluctantly left the room, casting one last glance at Olivia's pale face before the door closed behind him. In the hallway, Sanders clasped his shoulder. "You look done in, son. Get some food and rest." "I should ride to Liberty Creek," Ethan said. "Let them know she's safe. Find out about those bank robbers." Sanders shook his head. "Not tonight. It's too dark and you're exhausted. First light tomorrow will be soon enough." Ethan knew the older man was right, but he found it difficult to think of anything but the injured woman in the guest room. After forcing down some stew in the kitchen, he claimed a chair in the hallway outside her room, determined to be nearby if she needed anything during the night. Hours passed. Ranch hands came and went, offering coffee and company, but Ethan remained at his post. Shortly after midnight, the door finally opened, and Doc Wilkins emerged, wiping his hands on a towel. "She'll live," he said without preamble. "Broken arm, 2 cracked ribs, nasty ankle sprain, and a concussion. It's a miracle she didn't break her neck in that fall." "Will she recover fully?" Ethan asked, rising to his feet. The doctor nodded. "With proper care and time to heal, she's young and strong." He fixed Ethan with a shrewd look. "She was asking for you, says you saved her life." "I just happened to be in the right place," Ethan replied, uncomfortable with the praise. "Well, she's awake now if you want to see her. Just keep it brief, she needs rest." Ethan entered the room quietly. Martha had cleaned Olivia up, washing away the dirt and blood. Her auburn hair was neatly braided, and she wore one of Martha's nightgowns. Her right arm was properly splinted and bandaged, and clean white bandages wrapped her ribs. Despite the injuries, Ethan thought she looked beautiful. Olivia's eyes opened as he approached the bed. "Mr. Marshall," she said softly, "my rescuer. Just Ethan, please." He sat in the chair beside her bed. "How are you feeling?" "Like I fell down a cliff," she replied with a weak smile, "but alive, thanks to you." "Do you remember what happened?" Ethan asked. Olivia's expression darkened. 3 men robbed the Liberty Creek Bank. I was across the street at the general store when I heard shouting. When I went outside, I saw them shooting." Her voice faltered. They killed Mr. Patterson, the teller. He was just an old man. Ethan's jaw tightened. Did you recognize any of them? The leader had a scar across his right cheek. I'd never seen him before. Her eyes met Ethan's. When they spotted me watching, they chased me. I barely made it to my horse in time. You're safe now, Ethan assured her, fighting the urge to take her hand. The Double S is the biggest ranch in these parts. Sanders has hired guns to protect his cattle. They'll keep you safe too. I need to get word to Liberty Creek, Olivia said, attempting to sit up before wincing in pain. The children, they'll be worried when I don't show up to teach tomorrow. I'm riding to town at first light, Ethan told her, gently pressing her shoulder back to the pillow. I'll let everyone know you're here and recovering. Gratitude shone in Olivia's eyes. Thank you, I seem to be saying that a lot to you. Get some rest now, Ethan said, standing reluctantly. Doctor's orders. Will you come back? The question seemed to surprise them both. Every chance I get, Ethan promised, the words coming easily. You've got nowhere else to be for a while, and I've got a lot of stories about wild horses to bore you with. That earned him another smile. I'd like that. Ethan left the room feeling strangely light-headed. He couldn't explain the immediate connection he felt to this woman he'd just met under the most unusual circumstances. All he knew was that he wanted to see her smile again. True to his word, Ethan rode out at dawn. The journey to Liberty Creek took 3 hours at a steady pace. The small town was bustling with activity when he arrived, but not the normal kind. Groups of men gathered on street corners, talking in low, urgent voices. Outside the bank, a makeshift memorial of flowers marked where the teller had fallen. Ethan tied Drifter to the hitching post outside the sheriff's office and went inside. Sheriff Tom Bradley looked up from his desk, his face haggard from lack of sleep. Marshal, he greeted. What brings you to town? Found something of yours yesterday, Ethan replied, or rather someone, Olivia Daniels. The sheriff stood abruptly. Miss Daniels is alive, thank God. Half the town thought she'd been killed by those outlaws. She's at the Double S Ranch, Ethan explained. Fell into Cottonwood Ravine while being chased, broken arm, cracked ribs, but she'll recover. Bradley shook his head in wonder. That's the best news I've had since this mess started. The whole town's been in an uproar. They shot old Patterson dead, took nearly $5,000. Miss Daniels is our only witness. She described the leader man with a scar across his right cheek. The sheriff nodded grimly. Sounds like Jake Thornton. He and his gang have hit 3 other banks in the territory. They're ruthless. He paused, eyeing Ethan. They might come looking for her if they figure out she survived. They won't get near her at the Double S, Ethan said firmly. After leaving the sheriff, Ethan visited the small schoolhouse. A handwritten sign on the door announced classes were canceled until further notice. 2 young girls sitting on the steps jumped up when they saw him. Are you here to be our new teacher? One asked hopefully. Ethan smiled and crouched to their level. No, but I have news about Miss Daniels. She's safe and recovering at the ranch where I work. The girls' faces lit up. Really? Miss Daniels isn't dead. No, she's hurt but getting better. Ethan hesitated, then added, would you like to make her some get-well cards? I could deliver them when I go back. This suggestion was met with enthusiastic agreement. Word spread quickly, and soon Ethan found himself surrounded by schoolchildren eager to create messages for their beloved teacher. The town's seamstress offered to pack some of Olivia's clothes, and the owner of the general store insisted on sending supplies for her recovery. By the time Ethan left Liberty Creek, Drifter's saddlebags were bulging with gifts and messages for Olivia. The genuine affection the townspeople showed for their schoolteacher only increased Ethan's admiration for her. The return journey gave him time to think. Sheriff Bradley's warning about Thornton's gang troubled him. If they learned Olivia had survived, they might come after her to silence the only witness who could identify them. The Double S Ranch was defensible, but Ethan wouldn't rest easy until Thornton and his men were captured. It was late afternoon when Ethan arrived back at the ranch. After stabling Drifter, he headed straight to the main house, eager to see how Olivia was faring. He found her sitting up in bed, color returned to her cheeks as Martha Sanders helped her eat some soup. Ethan. Olivia's face brightened when she saw him, a reaction that warmed him more than he cared to admit. Martha gave him a knowing smile as she took the empty soup bowl. "I'll leave you two to catch up," she said, excusing herself. "How was town?" Olivia asked once they were alone. "Did you tell everyone I'm alive?" "I did," Ethan confirmed, sitting beside her bed and unpacking his saddlebags. "And I came back with quite a haul. The whole town sent their love and their things." Olivia's eyes widened as he pulled out package after package. "Oh my goodness," she laughed, then winced as the movement jarred her ribs. "Careful now," Ethan cautioned. "Doc Wilkins says you need to take it easy." "I know, but I'm already going stir-crazy just lying here." She picked up one of the children's cards, reading it with a soft smile. "They're such sweet kids." "They miss you," Ethan said. "The little girl with pigtails, Jenny, made me promise to bring you back as soon as you're well." "Jenny Miller," Olivia confirmed. "She's my brightest student." She looked up at Ethan, her blue eyes serious. "Did you speak with Sheriff Bradley about the robbers?" Ethan nodded, setting aside the last of the packages. "He thinks the leader is Jake Thornton, a known outlaw. They've robbed other banks in the territory." Fear flickered across Olivia's face. "Will they come after me because I saw them?" Ethan hesitated, not wanting to frighten her further but unwilling to lie. "It's possible," he acknowledged. "But you're safe here. Sanders has men patrolling the property day and night, and He trailed off, unsure how to express the fierce protectiveness he felt. "And you," Olivia prompted. "I won't let anything happen to you," he finished simply. Their eyes held for a long moment before Olivia looked away, a blush coloring her cheeks. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything." Over the next few days, Ethan found himself making excuses to check on Olivia as often as his duties allowed. She was a quick healer, and by the third day was insisting on getting out of bed. Martha helped her dress and moved to a comfortable chair by the window where she could look out over the ranch. Ethan brought her books from Sanders' library and sat with her in the evenings, telling stories about his life on the ranch. He learned that Olivia had grown up on a small farm in Pennsylvania, the only child of a widowed father who had valued education above all else. "He saved every penny to send me to the teacher's college in Philadelphia," she told Ethan as they sat together on the porch one evening, a week after her accident. "He was so proud when I graduated." "He would be proud of what you're doing here too," Ethan said. "Those kids in town adore you." Olivia smiled wistfully. "I hope I can go back soon. I miss teaching." "Doc Wilkins says at least 6 more weeks before that arm is strong enough," Ethan reminded her, "and you're still favoring that ankle." 6 weeks, Olivia sighed dramatically. "What am I supposed to do for 6 weeks?" "Well," Ethan said a little hesitantly, "I had a thought about that. Some of the ranch hands have children who don't get proper schooling because they're too far from town. If you felt up to it, maybe you could teach them here while you recover." Olivia's face lit up. "Ethan, that's a wonderful idea. How many children are there?" 7 or 8, I think. Different ages. Sanders has an old bunkhouse we could fix up as a temporary schoolroom." He smiled at her enthusiasm. "I'll talk to him about it tomorrow." "Thank you," Olivia said, impulsively reaching out to touch his hand. "I was starting to feel so useless." Ethan's skin tingled where her fingers rested on his. "You could never be useless," he said softly. The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken feelings. Then Martha called from inside that dinner was ready, breaking the spell. Sanders readily agreed to the schoolhouse idea, and within days the old bunkhouse had been cleaned, furnished with tables and chairs, and stocked with books and writing materials. Word spread among the ranch hands, and soon Olivia had 9 students ranging from 6 to 14 years old. Despite her injuries, she threw herself into teaching with enthusiasm. Ethan often found excuses to pass by the makeshift school, enjoying the sight of Olivia in her element. She had a natural way with children, firm but kind, challenging each student at their own level. 2 weeks after her fall, Olivia was sitting on the porch after dinner, grading papers with her left hand when Ethan approached. He carried a bundle wrapped in oilcloth. "Evening, Miss Daniels," he greeted, his tone formal but his eyes twinkling. Finished with your scholarly duties? Olivia laughed. For now, these arithmetic problems will have to wait until tomorrow. She set the papers aside. What's that you're carrying? A surprise. Ethan unwrapped the bundle to reveal a beautiful leather-bound book. Found this in Liberty Creek today. Thought you might like it. Olivia accepted the book with her good hand, her eyes widening as she read the title. Tennyson's Poems. Oh, Ethan, how did you know? He's my favorite. You mentioned him the other night, Ethan said, pleased by her reaction. Said your father used to read his poems to you. I can't believe you remembered that, Olivia murmured, touched by his thoughtfulness. She opened the book carefully, inhaling the scent of new paper and ink. This is too much. Nonsense, Ethan said, sitting beside her. It's the least I could do to keep you entertained during your convalescence. Olivia studied him in the fading light. You were in Liberty Creek today. Any news about Thornton and his gang? Ethan's expression darkened. They hit another bank in Billings. 2 people killed this time. They need to be stopped, Olivia said firmly. I've been thinking about it, Ethan. When I'm well enough, I should testify against them, help the law catch them. That's dangerous talk, Ethan warned. Thornton doesn't leave witnesses. The only reason you're alive is because he thinks you died in that ravine. But I can't hide forever, Olivia argued. Eventually, I'll need to go back to Liberty Creek, resume my teaching. What then? Ethan had no answer for that. The thought of Olivia putting herself in danger made his chest tighten with fear, but he knew she was right. As long as Thornton remained free, she would never be truly safe. Let's cross that bridge when we come to it, he said finally. For now, you need to focus on healing, and maybe. He hesitated. Maybe what? Olivia prompted. Maybe read me some of that Tennyson, Ethan suggested. I'm not much for poetry, but I'd like to hear why you love it so. Olivia's smile was worth every penny he'd spent on the book. She opened to a marked page and began to read in a clear, expressive voice. Come into the garden, Maud, for the black bat night has flown. As her voice wove the lyrical words into the quiet evening, Ethan found himself entranced not just by the poetry, but by the woman reading it. In that moment, he knew with sudden clarity that he was falling in love with Olivia Daniels. The following weeks fell into a pleasant routine. Mornings, Olivia taught the ranch children in the makeshift schoolhouse. Afternoons, she rested and prepared lessons. Evenings, she and Ethan would sit on the porch, talking until the stars came out. Sometimes they read poetry together, other times, Ethan taught her about the ranch, explaining the seasonal rhythms of cattle raising. Olivia's broken arm healed slowly but steadily. By the 4th week, she could remove the splint for short periods, though the limb remained weak. Her ribs no longer pained her with every breath, and she walked with only a slight limp. One sunny afternoon, Ethan found her standing by the corral, watching as the ranch hands broke a new Mustang. Should you be out here? He asked, concerned about her walking so far from the house alone. I needed some fresh air, Olivia replied, and I wanted to watch. She nodded toward the corral, where a young cowboy was being repeatedly thrown from a bucking bay gelding. He's not going to succeed that way. No, Ethan raised an eyebrow. And what would you suggest, schoolteacher? Olivia gave him a pointed look. I grew up on a farm, Mr. Marshall. I've broken horses before. That animal is frightened, not mean. He needs patience, not a heavy hand. Intrigued, Ethan leaned against the fence beside her. Go on. Look at his eyes, see how they're rolling white. He's terrified. Each time that boy climbs on his back, he reinforces the horse's fear. She turned to Ethan. May I try something? With your arm barely healed, I don't think so. I don't mean ride him, Olivia clarified. Just approach him, talk to him. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. Let me come with you. They entered the corral together after the frustrated cowboy had stomped away in defeat. The Mustang stood in the far corner, sides heaving, sweat darkening his coat. Stay back a bit, Olivia instructed Ethan. Let him see I'm not a threat. With slow, deliberate movements, she approached the nervous horse. Her voice was a soft, continuous murmur as she stopped several feet away, making no attempt to touch or catch him. Instead, she simply stood, talking in that gentle voice, her body language relaxed and open. After several minutes, the Mustang's breathing calmed. His ears, which had been pinned back in fear, moved forward with curiosity. Olivia carefully extended her good hand, palm flat, letting the horse catch her scent. To Ethan's amazement, the Mustang stretched his neck forward and sniffed her fingers. Olivia remained perfectly still, continuing her soft monologue. Eventually, the horse took a step toward her, then another. When the Mustang finally allowed Olivia to stroke his nose, Ethan shook his head in wonder. "I've never seen anything like it," he admitted. "That horse threw every man who's tried to touch him for 3 days." Olivia smiled, still caressing the Mustang's velvet muzzle. "He just needed someone to listen to him, not dominate him." She glanced at Ethan. "Sometimes the strongest connections come from mutual respect, not force." Their eyes met over the horse's head, and Ethan felt something shift between them, an acknowledgement of the deepening bond they shared. That evening, Ethan sought out Samuel Sanders in his study. The ranch owner looked up from his account books as Ethan entered. "Something on your mind, son?" Sanders asked, gesturing to a chair. Ethan sat, choosing his words carefully. "It's about Miss Daniels." "Ah." Sanders leaned back, a knowing expression crossing his weathered face. "Thought this conversation might be coming. You've grown fond of our schoolteacher." "More than fond," Ethan admitted, "but she'll be returning to Liberty Creek soon. Her arm's nearly healed and the town needs her." "And you're wondering whether to declare yourself before she goes." Sanders poured 2 glasses of whiskey, sliding one across the desk to Ethan. "Or perhaps you're thinking of going with her." Ethan accepted the drink but didn't immediately respond. The thought of Olivia leaving had been weighing on him for days. He couldn't imagine returning to his life as it was before she arrived. "I've been foreman here for 6 years, he finally said. "The Double S is my home." "And a good home it's been," Sanders agreed. "But a man needs more than work to fill his life." He studied Ethan thoughtfully. "You know, Martha and I have been talking, getting older, harder to manage this place. Been thinking it might be time to take on a partner." Ethan looked up sharply. "A partner?" Sanders nodded. "Someone who knows the ranch inside and out, someone I trust." He sipped his whiskey. "Someone who might want to build a future here, maybe even a family." The implication was clear, and Ethan felt a surge of hope. "Are you offering me a partnership in the Double S?" "Might be," Sanders said with a slight smile. "Would that change your thinking about Miss Daniels returning to Liberty Creek?" "It might," Ethan acknowledged. "If she'd consider staying." "Only one way to find out." Sanders raised his glass. "Life's too short for regrets, son. If that woman means something to you, don't let her ride away without knowing." The next morning dawned clear and cool, a perfect early autumn day. Ethan finished his chores early, then sought out Olivia. He found her in the garden behind the main house, gathering late-season flowers with Martha. "Miss Daniels," he called, removing his hat. "Might I have a word?" Martha gave Olivia a significant look before excusing herself, basket of flowers in hand. Olivia turned to Ethan, her cheeks slightly flushed. "What is it, Mr. Marshall?" she asked, the formality of their address a playful ritual they maintained in public. "I was wondering if you might like to ride out with me today," Ethan said. "Doc Wilkins says light exercise would be good for your arm, and there's a place I'd like to show you." Olivia hesitated. "I haven't been on a horse since." "I know," Ethan said gently, "but I've got a gentle mare that wouldn't spook at a thunderstorm, and I'll be right beside you." After a moment, Olivia nodded. "I'd like that. Let me change into something more suitable." An hour later, they rode side by side away from the ranch. True to Ethan's word, the dapple-gray mare he'd chosen for Olivia was calm and responsive. As they rode, Ethan could see Olivia's initial tension melting away, her confidence returning with each passing mile. He led her along a winding trail that climbed steadily into the foothills. The aspens were just beginning to turn, their leaves shimmering gold in the sunlight. After about an hour's ride, they emerged from a stand of pines onto a high meadow overlooking the valley below. "Oh!" Olivia exclaimed, reining in her horse to take in the spectacular view. The Double S Ranch spread out beneath them, a patchwork of pastures, buildings, and grazing cattle. Beyond it, the plains stretched to the distant mountains, painted in the rich colors of early autumn. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "I had no idea." "This is my thinking spot," Ethan said, dismounting and helping Olivia down from her horse. "When I need to clear my head or make a decision, I come up here." He spread a blanket on the grass and they sat together, the gentle breeze carrying the scent of pine and wildflowers. For a while, they simply enjoyed the view in companionable silence. "Olivia," Ethan finally said, turning to face her, "there's something I need to tell you." She must have heard the seriousness in his voice, for her expression grew solemn. "What is it? These past weeks, having you at the ranch, they've been the happiest of my life." Ethan took a deep breath. "I know you'll be well enough to return to Liberty Creek soon, but I'm hoping. That is, I was wondering if you might consider staying." Olivia's eyes widened. "Staying at the Double S. Sanders has offered me a partnership in the ranch," Ethan explained. "A chance to build something permanent here, something of my own." He reached for her hand, holding it gently between both of his. "But it wouldn't mean anything without you, Ethan." Olivia's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm not good with words like you're Mr. Tennyson," Ethan continued, "but I know what I feel. I love you, Olivia Daniels. I think I've loved you since I carried you up that ravine." Tears filled Olivia's blue eyes. "Oh, Ethan, these weeks have meant so much to me too, but my life, my work is in Liberty Creek. Those children need me." "I understand," Ethan said, though his heart sank. "And I would never ask you to give up teaching, but there are children here who need learning too. The school you started in the bunkhouse, it could be permanent. The first real school for ranch children in the county." Olivia looked thoughtful. "A proper school out here. Sanders is willing to fund it, said it's long overdue." Ethan squeezed her hand gently. "You could build something special, Olivia, something lasting, and us," she asked softly. "What would we build?" Ethan's heart raced. "A life together." He hesitated, then continued, "I'm not asking for an answer today, just think about it." Olivia's eyes searched his face. Then, with a decisiveness that took his breath away, she leaned forward and pressed her lips to his. The kiss was brief but filled with promise. "I don't need to think about it," she murmured as they parted. "I love you too, Ethan Marshall." Joy surged through Ethan, and he pulled her into his arms, mindful of her healing injuries. Their second kiss lingered, sealing the commitment they'd just made to each other. As they rode back to the ranch, side by side in the golden afternoon light, Ethan felt a peace he'd never known before. The future stretched before them, full of possibilities, but fate had one more challenge in store. They had just reached the outer pastures of the Double S when a ranch hand came galloping toward them, his expression urgent. "Ethan, Miss Daniels," the young cowboy called as he reined in his lathered horse. "Thank God I found you, riders coming armed men. Sanders thinks it might be Thornton's gang. He sent me to warn you." Ethan's blood ran cold. He glanced at Olivia, seeing the fear in her eyes. "How many?" "5 or 6, coming from the East Road," the hand pointed. "Sanders is gathering the men, but he said to tell you to take Miss Daniels to the line cabin up north. Stay there until someone comes for you." Ethan nodded grimly. "Tell Sanders we're headed there now." As the hand galloped back toward the ranch, Ethan turned to Olivia. "The line cabin is about 3 miles from here in the opposite direction. We need to go now." Olivia's face was pale, but she nodded resolutely. "Let's go." They set off at a canter, taking a narrow trail that wound through dense pines. Ethan led the way, constantly scanning their surroundings for any sign of pursuit. The distant sound of gunfire made them both tense in their saddles. "The ranch," Olivia gasped. "They're attacking the ranch. Sanders has plenty of men," Ethan reassured her, though his own concern was evident. "They'll defend the place." The line cabin appeared ahead, a small, sturdy structure built of logs, nearly invisible among the trees. Ethan quickly dismounted and helped Olivia down, then led the horses around back where they wouldn't be easily spotted. Inside, the cabin was simple but well-maintained, a single room with a stone fireplace, rough wooden furniture, and supplies for emergencies. Ethan closed the shutters over the windows, then checked the rifle that hung above the door. It was loaded and ready. "What now?" Olivia asked, her voice remarkably steady despite the circumstances. "We wait," Ethan replied, lighting a small lamp. "If it is Thornton, he might not even know you're at the ranch. This could just be another robbery." Olivia shook her head. "It's too much of a coincidence." "They must have learned I survived." She sank onto a bench near the fire. "This is my fault. I've put everyone in danger." "No," Ethan said firmly, sitting beside her and taking her hands in his. Thornton and his men are responsible for their own actions, not you. They fell silent, listening intently for any sound of approach. Minutes stretched into an hour, then two. The gunfire had stopped, but whether that was good news or bad, they couldn't tell. As dusk began to fall, Ethan's vigilance was rewarded. The faint sound of hoofbeats approaching made him tense, rifle in hand. "Stay back," he whispered to Olivia, positioning himself by the window where he could see without being seen through a crack in the shutters. Ethan watched as 3 riders emerged from the trees. Even in the failing light, he could make out the scarred face of the leader, Jake Thornton himself. "They've tracked us," Ethan said grimly, turning to Olivia. "Thornton and 2 others." Olivia's face paled, but her voice remained steady. "What do we do?" Ethan assessed their options quickly. "The cabin is defensible, but we're outnumbered. Our best chance is to slip away while we still can." He glanced at the back door. "There's a trail behind the cabin that leads up into the hills, if we can reach it before they surround us." A voice called from outside, stopping him mid-sentence. "We know you're in there, Marshal. Send out the woman and we'll let you live." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Not a chance, Thornton," he shouted back. "There are a dozen ranch hands on their way here right now. Your best bet is to ride out while you still can." Harsh laughter answered him. "Nice try. Your ranch friends are a little busy right now. No one's coming to help you." Olivia touched Ethan's arm. "What does he mean?" "He's bluffing," Ethan said, though doubt crept into his voice. "Sanders wouldn't abandon us." "Last chance, Marshal," Thornton called. "The woman for your life. She's the only one who can identify us. Once she's gone, we disappear for good." "Let me go," Olivia whispered suddenly. "I can't let you die for me." Ethan gripped her shoulders. "That's not happening. We go together or not at all." He glanced around the cabin, mind racing. "There's a cellar trapdoor beneath that rug. Root storage, but it connects to an old drainage tunnel. It might lead us to safety." Hope flickered in Olivia's eyes. "Will they see us leave?" "Not if we give them something else to look at." Ethan moved quickly, gathering oil from the lamp and pouring it on some rags. "When I light this and throw it out the front window, we make for the trapdoor. The fire will keep them busy long enough for us to get a head start." Olivia nodded, helping Ethan move the heavy rug to reveal the trapdoor beneath. The cellar yawned dark and musty below them. "Ready?" Ethan asked, makeshift torch in hand. "Ready." With swift movements, Ethan lit the torch, threw open the shutter, and tossed the flaming bundle toward the dry brush near where the outlaws had taken cover. Shouts of alarm rose as the brush ignited instantly. "Now." Ethan hissed, helping Olivia through the trapdoor before following her down, pulling it closed above them. The cellar was pitch dark and smelled of earth and old vegetables. Ethan struck a match, illuminating a low, cramped space with rough stone walls. "This way," he whispered, leading Olivia toward a narrow opening in the far wall. "The tunnel's small, we'll have to crawl." The sound of boots stomping above them and angry voices spurred them forward. Ethan went first, striking occasional matches to light their way through the winding tunnel. It was barely wide enough for their shoulders, and in places they had to wiggle through on their bellies. Olivia never complained, though Ethan knew her recently healed arm must be painful. They crawled for what seemed like hours, though in reality it was probably no more than 20 minutes. Finally, the tunnel widened and sloped upward. "We're almost out," Ethan encouraged, seeing a faint glimmer of starlight ahead. The tunnel opened into a dry creek bed screened by thick underbrush. They emerged into the cool night air, listening intently for any sign of pursuit. "Which way?" Olivia whispered. Ethan oriented himself by the stars. "The ranch is that way, but it's not safe yet. There's an old trapper's cabin about 2 miles up this creek. We can hole up there until morning." They set off on foot, staying in the creek bed where their footprints wouldn't show. The night was clear and cold, the moon providing just enough light to see by. Olivia stumbled occasionally on the uneven ground, and Ethan kept a supportive arm around her waist. "I'm sorry," she said after a particularly rough stretch. "I'm slowing us down. We're doing fine," Ethan assured her. "You're the bravest woman I've ever known, Olivia Daniels." She managed a tired smile. "Necessity rather than courage, I'm afraid." "No," Ethan said seriously. It takes real courage to face what you've faced and still keep going. Most men I know would have broken by now. They walked in silence for a time, each lost in thought. Eventually, the small trapper's cabin came into view, a dark silhouette against the starry sky. It was even more primitive than the line cabin, just a single room with a dirt floor and crude bunks, but it offered shelter and concealment. Ethan didn't risk a fire, knowing the smoke might give away their position. Instead, they huddled together on one of the bunks, sharing body heat against the chill mountain night. "Try to get some rest," Ethan murmured, wrapping his coat around Olivia's shoulders. "I'll keep watch." "Wake me in a few hours," she insisted. "You need rest too." Ethan nodded, though he had no intention of sleeping. As Olivia drifted into exhausted slumber against his shoulder, he remained vigilant, one hand on his pistol, listening for any sound that might signal danger. Dawn was just breaking when Ethan spotted movement in the trees. He eased Olivia gently onto the bunk and positioned himself by the window, gun drawn. Relief flooded through him as he recognized Samuel Sanders leading a group of ranch hands through the trees. He stepped outside, waving to catch their attention. Sanders galloped forward, his weathered face breaking into a grin. "Thank God, we've been searching all night." The other men gathered around as Olivia emerged from the cabin, blinking in the early morning light. "What happened at the ranch?" Ethan demanded. "Thornton said, 'Thornton's dead,'" Sanders interrupted. "He and his men tried to burn us out, but we were ready for them. 2 of his gang escaped, but the sheriff's got a posse after them." "No one was hurt?" Olivia asked anxiously. "Pete Miller took a bullet in the shoulder, but he'll live." Sanders dismounted, approaching them with a serious expression. "It's over, Miss Daniels. You're safe now." The journey back to the ranch was triumphant. Word had spread, and as they rode in, ranch hands and their families came out to cheer. Martha Sanders enveloped Olivia in a tearful embrace, scolding and fussing over her in the same breath. That evening, after baths and a hearty meal, Ethan and Olivia sat once again on the porch. The events of the past 24 hours seemed almost dreamlike now, in the peaceful quiet of the ranch. "I've been thinking," Olivia said, breaking the comfortable silence between them. "About what you asked yesterday before all this happened." Ethan turned to her, heart quickening. "And I want to stay," she said simply. "Not just because of us, though that's reason enough." She smiled, taking his hand. "But because I think I can do good here. Those children in the bunkhouse school, they're hungry for learning, and with a proper school, more families might settle in the area." "You're sure?" Ethan asked, hardly daring to believe it. "What about Liberty Creek?" "They'll find another teacher," Olivia said confidently. "But I don't think I'll find another man like you, Ethan Marshall, or another place that feels so much like home." Ethan drew her into his arms, marveling at how perfectly she fit there. "I love you, Olivia. I promise to spend every day making sure you never regret this decision." "I already know I won't," she murmured, lifting her face for his kiss. A year later, the Double S Ranch had transformed. Under Ethan's partnership with Sanders, the ranch had expanded its operations and improved its breeding stock. The makeshift school in the bunkhouse had become a proper schoolhouse, with 20 students from the ranch and neighboring homesteads attending daily lessons with Mrs. Olivia Marshall. On a crisp autumn afternoon, similar to the day Ethan had proposed, the couple stood on the ridge overlooking their domain. Olivia leaned back against her husband's chest, his arms wrapped protectively around her expanding waistline. "You ever think about that day?" she asked softly. "When I fell into the ravine," Ethan rested his chin on her shoulder. "Sometimes, though not as often as I think about climbing down to find you." Olivia turned in his arms. "If my horse hadn't spooked, if you hadn't been tracking that Mustang nearby." "If 1,000 things had gone differently," Ethan finished for her. "But they didn't, and here we are." "Here we are," Olivia echoed, placing his hand over the spot where their child grew, building something lasting. As the sun began to set, painting the valley in gold and crimson, Ethan thought about the strange twist of fate that had brought them together. A terrified horse, a dangerous fall, a man in the right place at the right time, all leading to this moment of perfect happiness. "We should head back," he said reluctantly. "Martha will have dinner waiting and you need your rest." Olivia smiled up at him, her blue eyes filled with love. "Lead the way, Mr. Marshall." Hand in hand, they walked down the ridge toward home, their future stretching before them as vast and promising as the Montana sky. 5 years passed, each season bringing new joys and challenges to the Marshall family. The Double S Ranch flourished under Ethan's management, becoming one of the most successful operations in the territory. When Samuel Sanders finally retired, he sold his remaining interest to Ethan, making him the sole owner alongside Olivia. Their son, James, born that first winter, was now an energetic 4-year-old with his father's green eyes and his mother's quick mind. He was joined 2 years later by a sister, Eleanor, who toddled after her brother with determined steps and a stubborn streak that made Ethan laugh and claim she was all Daniels. The schoolhouse had grown too, now a proper building with glass windows and a bell tower. Olivia still taught daily, though she had an assistant now to help with the increasing number of students. The territory was growing, with more families settling the once empty land. On the anniversary of the day Ethan had found Olivia in the ravine, they always rode out together to the high meadow that had become their special place. This year was no different, though they now packed a picnic basket for the children as well. As James and Eleanor played among the wildflowers under the watchful eye of Tanner, the ranch's most trusted hand who had accompanied them, Ethan and Olivia sat on their familiar blanket overlooking the valley. "Look at what we've built," Olivia said softly, gesturing toward the ranch below and the playing children nearby. "Sometimes I can hardly believe it." Ethan took her hand, still marveling at how perfectly it fit in his. "Best thing I ever did was climb down that ravine, and the second best." Olivia asked with a teasing smile, "Convincing the most stubborn, beautiful schoolteacher in the territory to marry me." He leaned over to kiss her lightly, "Though I'm still not sure how I managed that." Olivia's laughter, bright and clear in the mountain air, was the sweetest sound Ethan had ever heard. As they watched their children play in the golden afternoon light, both knew with absolute certainty that every step of their journey, even the dangerous fall that had started it, all had led exactly where they were meant to be. Together, they had built not just a ranch or a school, but a love that would endure long after the Wild West had faded into history, a love as enduring as the mountains that surrounded their home.